Record. So, good morning. It's Thursday, April 23rd. So, today we're going to start getting into three-dimensional objects. So, that's how you eventually get into volume and these crazy things called vertexes, edges, and everything like that. But we're not going to start with that today. So, today is just very, very much an introduction of here are 3D shapes. Can you kind of fold them and everything else? Okay, so that's where we're going to start today. The past 2 days we've done triangles and quadrilaterals. Okay, so we've already spent some time on those, so hopefully those went okay. Today may be a little bit more difficult if you have never seen them before. If you want up here, come here. Come here. I was getting scratched. So let me share my screen. No, that's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. All right. So this is what we're getting into today. So it's three-dimensional shapes. So if you didn't know, we're on page 935. Okay. So there's a whole lot of words and everything right here in front of you, a whole lot of vocabulary words. But a three-dimensional figure means that it goes in three different directions. It goes in a length, it goes in a width, and it goes with a height. Okay, so length, width, height. What y'all probably known is area, which has a length and a width. So now we just add a height. So it has a tallness to it. A net quit barking at me. Go get a toy. Go get a toy. I'm not your toy. A net is each of the shapes that it composes it. So look at the bottom of the page. You see how that's all folded out? That is a net where you can fold it back into place and get the three-dimensional shape. So a net is when it's all cut open and everything's folded out. Okay. So everybody should know what a cube is, right? A cube is just a three-dimensional shape composed of squares. Cough, cough, a dice. Tomorrow is your B-Day. But I can't sing Gerald Giraffe a happy birthday song because I don't have a Gerald Giraffe. I have a Nikki. So if Nikki shows up tomorrow, I'll sing her happy birthday. So a cube is a three-dimensional shape composed of squares. So we have to keep that in mind. It's tomorrow, but let's not talk about birthdays till tomorrow. Deal? So that magic word keeps coming up, congruent. So congruent is when everything is the same size and shape. So in this case, it's a cube because it's all squares, right? So congruent means same. That's all you have to remember. Remember, congruent means same. Kaylee, I'll talk about that here when we start wrapping everything up. Okay, if y'all have questions about that, I'll tell y'all. Just remind me. So congruent means same. That's all it is. So a rectangular prism. A prism means it's a three-dimensional shape. I'm about to sneeze. Okay. So a prism is a three-dimensional shape. In this case, it's a rectangular prism. All of you know what a rectangle is. So look at these two shapes. This is a cube because it's composed of all squares. This is a rectangular prism because it's a three-dimensional shape, but it has rectangles for the sides. Cough, cough. This is a perfect cube. Maybe you have a room like that in your house. It's like 8 by 8. This is a rectangular prism. My classroom was a rectangular prism because everything wasn't perfect squares. Okay. A lot of your rooms and things like that are not perfect. Just TBH. Thank you. No, it is not the coronavirus. Not fun and joking. So, a face is a flat surface. So a face is just one side of the shape. Okay. So each side of this is a square. So if you look down here at this net, square, 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 square. Each individual square is a face. Okay. So each one of those individual squares is a face. Just like each one of these individual squares or rectangles on this rectangular prism is a face. Okay. So any questions or concerns on all those vocabulary words? Okay. So I asked because that's a lot of just dictionary information, just blah. Okay. So I always like to kind of double check, make sure y'all are kind of following along with it. So let's go try some. How about that? Why are the audio icons still on? I want you to be single page and I want no audio icons. Anyway. D'Anthony, I heard you, but in the middle of the lesson, I'm not going to stop to answer that. We'll talk about that here in just a second. If I need to, I can reshare how to do it with Google Docs. I'll repost that video at the top as soon as we get out of here. Okay. And then that should give you a step-by-step instructions of how to do it. So it says, try it probably. So it says copy the net on a grade paper. You don't have to do that. So you also don't have to cut it out. But what figure is going to form when we do this? So Mahalat says a rectangular prism. Do we agree with that? Yeah, it's clearly going to be a rectangular prism because rectangle, 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 rectangle. So all of these are going to fold up perfectly, and these are just going to be the ends of it. Okay, so it's a rectangular prism. That is basically what you have to be able to understand in your mind of how this is going to work. Okay. In the perfect world, this is a hands-on lesson. We would be doing this with hands-on tools, but unfortunately it's not perfect. So, but I can't skip this lesson and then throw you into the next one that has even more just vocabulary, 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 vocabulary. Okay. So we've got to take this one step by step because for some of you, this is a new concept. You've never really gone into three-dimensional shapes before. Okay. So that's a rectangular prism. Perfect. So it says talk about it. In the first activity, what two-dimensional figures form the faces of the figure? How many faces are there? How many are congruent? So there's like 3 or 4 questions right there. Who can kind of tell me about that first shape? No, my dog's not calling me. They're both just barking at the window because somebody walked by. They're great protectors. Nobody attacks our house because of them. All 16 pounds combined. So, Mitchell, I'm going to come to you. I haven't picked on you in a while. So, Mitchell, you're unmuted.
Yes.
So, that first question, it says talk about it. So, there's quite a few questions in there. So, let's go through it. In the first activity, what two-dimensional figures form the faces of the figure? So, what two shapes are in that first one?
Do you mean like the triad?
No, like this picture right up here at the top. What two shapes are in this?
Rectangles and squares.
Boom. So it's composed completely of rectangles and squares. So that answers the first question. So the second question, how many faces are there?
How many faces?
Mm-hmm.
6 faces.
6 faces. So there's 6 individual shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 individual faces. How many are congruent? So, Mitchell, I would say this is a loaded question. Okay? Because I would say there are 4 congruent rectangles because they all match. And I would say there are 2 congruent squares. So technically, 6 of them are congruent. But that's not the answer that they're wanting. So you could go with 2 or 4 for 2 squares, 4 rectangles. But personally, I would just say 4 because there's 4 congruent rectangles. I would just go with the biggest number or itemize it. Okay. We're on page 936. We're talking about this first talk about question, which was asking about that net above. So let's go to the second talk about it. I'm going to mute you again, Mitchell. So it says identify the length, width, and height of the cube framed in the first activity. So this is the first activity. That is oh, it's not. So it says identify the length, the width, and the height of the cube. I hate this thing sometimes because, in my opinion, this is the first activity. Would you agree? However, what it's wanting is it's wanting to answer this one right here. So I messed that up by asking you the wrong one. So what two-dimensional forms figure the faces of this? It's all squares, right? Because it's 5 by 5, 5 by 5. So these are all squares. There's 6 faces, so 6 of them are congruent. In this one, it was different, but apparently they're wanting us to use this cube. I also thought it was talking about example 1. Are they wanting us to use this example 1? It doesn't make sense for us to have to be turning the page back and forth to talk about it when it's just a cube. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it as if it is this cube right here. Okay, the cube right beside it. Okay, so can we identify all of these measurements? And I'm coming to Catherine. Catherine.
Yes.
So can you tell me the length, the width, and the height of the cube right here?
Yeah. 125.
What's the length, width, and height? You don't have to multiply them together. Catherine, how tall is it?
It's 5 units tall.
How wide is it?
5 units tall. It's 15.
What's the length of it?
5.
So It's 5 units, 5 units, and 5 units.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all it is. You didn't have to multiply, you didn't have to add, you didn't have to do anything like that.
Oh,
Thanks.
it's blue.
You need it.
Sure, you need to go do your Lexia though. So, yeah, it's just 5, 5, and 5. That's all it is. Thanks, Catherine. All right. Oh, let's see. Who has somebody I haven't picked on in a while? Shania, I haven't picked on you in a while.
Told me yesterday.
I picked on you yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, then well, Alex has her hand raised, so I'm gonna go to her.
Yes. I mean, okay.
Hey, Alex, you have your hand raised. What can I do for you?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
What does it mean by faces?
What does it mean where?
By faces, like the faces of the shape.
Which question are you on?
Let's see.
Oh, when it's
Number
asking about the faces.
Mhm.
So do you want to look at the net above or do you want to look at the cube?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's look at this net up here since it's all folded out. So how many individual shapes do you see?
6.
So each one of those is a face. So this square is a face, this square is a face, and then each rectangle is a face. So if I showed you this coaster, right? Right now, all you see is one face. But if I turn it that way, you see a different face, and then a different face, and then a different face, and then a different face. So from each individual angle, you see a different face, right?
Mhm.
But what it's really composed of is a rectangle, a rectangle, a rectangle, a rectangle, square, and a square. So each one of those represents a different face. So each one of these shapes represents a different face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But since I have you unmuted, I'm going to ask you this third question. So what do you notice about the length, width, and height of this cube? Do you notice anything?
They are all 5 units.
Boom, because it's a cube, so that means each side, each edge is going to be the same unit. Perfect. Thank you, Alex.
Mhm.
So now we get to this last question. In the second activity, what two-dimensional, we're skipping that because they don't make references to which one it actually is. So number 6, you're asking, what does it mean? Describe the congruent faces for number 6. So fun fact, we're not actually going to do the practice it as the page today. So we're going to talk through some of these. So Ishan specifically asking about this question right here. He says, describe the congruent faces. So what does congruent mean first? That's the first thing that we have to answer. So the best way I can do this is I'm going to unmute Ishan. Ishan, you're unmuted. Okay. So what does congruent mean?
It has equal sides.
So it means it's the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are each one of these all congruent?
No.
Why would you say no?
Wait, never mind. Yes.
Okay.
It is.
So what can you tell me about each one of those?
The squares are congruent, and then two of the rectangles are congruent, and the other ones are congruent. The other rectangles are congruent.
Wait, is number 6 up here next to the green and not down here? Yes.
Yeah.
Stupid. I can't see because I have these icons that are not supposed to be there. I've turned them off, but they're still there. So is this one number 6 right here?
Yeah. The down here.
Okay. So what you can say is there are two groups of congruent. So there's these rectangles. Well, actually, they're not even. So I would say that there are three sets of two that are the same. Because these and these are the same, these and these are the same, and these are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yeah.
because of that, I would say that there are three sets of two that are congruent. And then that's you describing that you understand that this and this match, this and this match, and this and this match.
Okay.
That's roughly how I would do it, but it's just, I think it's stupid that they're asking you about congruency when they're not all congruent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand now.
Okay. So number 6 is this one hidden right here behind this audio button, which is stupid because all of the audio buttons are supposed to be turned off, but they're not. So on keto, you said you still don't understand number 6, so let's talk about it.
Okay.
So what's your question?
I just don't understand the whole question.
Okay. So for me, it says what two-dimensional figure forms the faces of the figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what shape is making all this?
Squares and rectangles.
So I don't see any squares. I only see rectangles. I see this is a rectangle and this is a rectangle. This and this are a rectangle. This and this are a rectangle, right?
Yeah.
So rectangles are the only thing making up this rectangular prism. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So how many faces are there?
6.
So there's 6. And then describe the congruent faces. Again, I think that's a stupid question, but you have 3 groups of 2 shapes that are all congruent. So this and this match, this and this match, and then this and this match. So you have 3 different groups that are congruent, but you don't have one group that is congruent. So I think that's really stupid of them to do that. But I understand the concept that they're going for, but when you leave it vague like that, it becomes very complicated. Okay. So before we turn things in, what I want y'all to try to do is I want y'all to try to do 7 through 9 right here. Okay. 7 through 9, just right here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. So I want to give y'all like 3 minutes and then we're going to talk about them. Okay. You can put your answers in the chat, but don't send them just yet. Just copy it.
Or I accidentally spiked it.
Yeah, buddy. Okay. We can tell Miss Kuykendall. So, Saloni, you asked, how do you figure out the measurement? Think about that for a second. Is there a way that you can figure out the measure of this? The answer is yes. Just think through it for just a second and you'll come to that realization. I bet a lot of people are having that same question though. Bingo, that's it. All right, so let's talk about these. So if you have your answers, go ahead and put them in. So, okay. Whatever you need to do next. Or you can take like a 10, 15-minute break. So, Kieran, to answer your question, Alex is supposed to have a knowledge check this week. So if that's the case for you, your knowledge check would be in place of the 15 topics. Okay. You don't have to do both. The knowledge check is in place of it. So let's talk through these. So it says, copy the net onto grid paper, cut out the net, fold along the lines of the three-dimensional figure. So if we cut this out, what shape would we get? So Bethany and Ishan are both saying a cube. I would agree. Okay. So this would form a cube. What two-dimensional figures form this shape? They both agree that it's a square. Well, yeah, it's a square. So each one of these is a square. They're all 4 by 4. So they're a square. How many faces are there? There's not 12 faces. There's 6 faces because it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 faces in total. Describe the congruent faces. They're all congruent, which is correct. I would have just said they're all 4 by 4 squares. That's how my description would have gone, because I would have just counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, no worries. I would much rather you send out what you believe it is, and then we can talk through it. There's no harm, no foul. Promise. Okay? So, and then it says identify the length, width, and height of the figure you formed. So it would be 4 long, 4 wide, and 4 tall, because it's square, so all sides are going to be the same. Okay. So you don't have to multiply them or anything. It's just 4 by 4 by 4. So again, don't multiply them, anything like that. You're not trying to find the volume. That's what several of y'all keep doing because you just keep multiplying. Just put 6 by 6 by 6. Bethany, I just unmuted you.
Hello.
So you said I didn't do that one because I didn't know how to do it. Which one? The identify the lengths?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you see this square right here?
Yep.
How tall is it?
4.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 squares tall, right? And then it's 4 squares wide. Would you agree?
Yep.
So that's all it is. You were just counting, so it's 4 by 4. You don't know if that's inches, feet, miles. You don't know what that is. It's 4 units. So it's 4 units wide, 4 units long, and it's going to be 4 units tall. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. I'm going to mute you again. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do the My Homework page. So we're going to do 939, 940. Let's try the whole thing. Okay. So it's 8 questions. Do we have questions, concerns, anything that we need to talk about before I truly turn y'all loose on this? Sure. Caesar, you're unmuted. At least you're supposed to be.
Well,
Caesar, you're unmuted. So which part are you struggling with, buddy?
the whole thing.
Okay. So okay. So Caesar, you are currently in a room, correct? You are
Yes.
currently inside your house?
Yes.
Okay. So how many walls are in that room?
1, 2, 3, 4.
So there's 4 walls. Is there a ceiling?
Yes.
Is there a floor?
Yes.
So how many faces are there?
6.
6. Because there's 4 walls and then there's a roof and a ceiling, right?
Yes.
So if I asked you to, could you measure that wall in front of you? If I gave you a tape measure,
Yes.
yeah, you can measure how tall it is and how wide it is, right?
Yes.
So here's my question. How many of those are exactly the same size? And Gael, you do the My Homework page, you do the whole thing. So 1 through 8. Okay. So Caesar, back to you. So how many of those walls are exactly the same? The exact same size?
I think the one in front of me and the one behind me.
Okay. So the one in front of you and the one behind you are going to be the exact same size. Yes. What about the ones to your left and right? Are they going to be the same size?
Yes.
Yes. What about the roof and the ceiling? Are they going to be the same size?
Yes.
So guess what? Each one of those is congruent. So the roof and the ceiling are congruent. The walls to your left and right are congruent. The walls in front of you and behind you are congruent. Right?
Yes.
So guess what? You pretty well just described every single thing to me. You told me how many faces there were, how many of them were congruent, and everything like that. All it's asking is it gives you a shape and it wants you to kind of give some information on it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me go look at number 2. Fill in a blank with a correct word to describe each sentence. A net is a 2-dimensional blank of a 3-dimensional figure. The word I would use there is a cutout because it all needs to be folded back together. But just figure out a word that kind of goes somewhere with that because it's not, a net is not a 2-dimensional figure of a 3-dimensional figure. I mean, it's a 2-dimensional model because it's all folded out. Floney. Yes, ma'am.
it wants you to use the word pattern because if you go to page 935, that's what it says at the top.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Yeah. A net is a two-dimensional pattern of a three-dimensional figure. Boom. Perfect. Thank you, Saloni.
You're welcome.
So that's what I would put for number 2. Remember, those vocabulary words are still going to be there for you. So if you need to go make them back a reference point, you can. So anybody else, questions, concerns, anything I can kind of help talk y'all through? Ishan, what's your question, buddy? Do I need to unmute you? Ishan, what you got, buddy?
I have a question. So on number 7 on the homework, what rectangle or prism are they talking about?
My guess is they're talking about that special delivery rectangular prism right there.
We don't have it on our page.
Well, that's stupid. So on your page, like there's a number 7 and it does not have any kind of shape right there next to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then imagine whatever box you want. So
Okay.
just imagine a box and describe kind of what that box would look like.
Okay.
I mean, for me, that's kind of stupid that they're going to have you do that without giving you a reference point. But the book also wants you to use your mental capacity to be able to put that idea in front of you.
Okay.
I don't agree with it because I think they should have offered you that. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions, concerns? Okay. So then I'm going to stop the recording.